So, hi, this is Chris Mead. This is the latest episode of Rise the Victor, and I have a very lovely Charlotte Carvella. Is that right, Carvella?
Yeah, Carvella, yeah.
Yeah, and Charlotte, you came to see me back in July 2015. Do you want to explain how you come to see me?
Yeah, of course. So when I was 15, so it's going back about 10 years ago, I was raped on holiday. I was away with my friend and her family, and it was a traumatic event for me. Being a child at the time, we didn't really know how to address it or what to do. So we hid it from her parents, hid it from everybody, and that caused me a lot of problems mentally. I tend to then start to react out. I affected emotionally. I turned to drink, drugs, and went down a really deep spiral, really, essentially, as I went through. I eventually came clean to my mum when I was about 18 or 19.
It was a few years on, wasn't it?
Yeah. Quite a while on, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So she found out a while after. When she tried to help me, we spoke to different counsellors. I saw different psychologists, psychiatrists, and eventually I was then sectioned in the Priory. When I came through to get sectioned, I tried things like EMDR, and it didn't really work for me at all. It was still sitting there. I'd have a lot of flashbacks. A lot of things would trigger it off, even things such as like colour, which is really, I like the colour orange.
I can remember we talked about it. It's the colour, the boys' shorts were orange, weren't they?
They were, and I remember coming to you later on another time in a bright orange hoodie.
That's right, no, you like really bright, wow.
But yeah, I was in and out of the Priory, different things. I tried to commit suicide on several occasions because of it, and it just really wasn't working for me. Then my mum and I sat down one day and said, right, we've got to find something different. Something that's not magic pills that they're trying to give you at a doctor's, not trying to section you. And that's when we came across Chris and his website.
Yeah, cool.
And I watched someone's video on there. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a gentleman, and he was sitting there with his wife or girlfriend speaking about his childhood. And it just really resembled to me. And I rang Chris that day. And I was in with him the following week. So that's how I came to find about Chris, and it made an absolute difference.
Yeah, I think that was Lee, actually, quite early on. Yeah, so Lee and Jane. And that's the thing, I think, because you saw me, I'm not sure if you saw me for 2 hours or an hour and a half, or I'm not can't remember, but, you know, I can remember how you were when you first showed up, when you know, and obviously you've gone through a lot. And having a conversation going, you know, we can remove this really quickly. You know, it's really difficult for people to appreciate how fast you can change in these techniques which you can use. And that's why the videos, which I put on the website, because people don't believe, but if you can see the reaction, the response from a person who's gone through a similar encounter, similar situation, then they can think, okay, well, you know, there must be some truth in this. And of course, there's lots and lots of reviews and stuff. And, you know, you did one session, and I think you went away cleared a lot of those things which happened to you.
Yes.
And then you came back, I think a few months later, wasn't it?
Yes.
A few trigger points and stuff. And we got rid of those things really quickly, didn't we?
We did, definitely.
So, and Charlotte now runs her own business as a Pilates school, Pilates practice. And we actually hatched that business in that second session, didn't we?
We did.
Because, you know, you figure, I've had enough of going up to London, being a secretary or what it was you were doing. You said, you know, I want to do something different. So we actually, you know, dealt with the things which were playing up, and then we actually spent, I think, over half of a session planning out how we're going to build your Pilates business out. So, you know, I'm an entrepreneur through and through, and we sat down and thought, okay, we can do this and this. And that was really a real start of your journey for you to move on to something bigger. But, you know, what you did do is that, you know, because at that time, the videos came out, your video has inspired hundreds of women to come forward for being attacked, being raped, you know. And there've been a number of famous people. Duffy, the Welsh singer, she came to see me as a result of your video, and a number of other celebrities, because they could see, okay, there's a potential opportunity to change. And, you know, unless you get like some idea, some insight, then, you know, most people are fearful of trying something new, because CBT doesn't work in many cases when we're talking about PTSD and higher levels of anxiety. EMDR is quite brutal in how, because you had that, didn't you? Yeah. And I can remember you having an EMDR done to me on stage at a training. And it was a minor thing which I had, which was frustrating me, bothering me. And it wasn't really proper trauma in the context of what I see. And what happened was that I had a headache for 3.5 days after that event. And I was flying out to overseas, to Spain the following day. And I had to phone up whilst I was overseas. And I've got this headache. I've got this feeling really bad. Okay, if this is what EMDR is like, for sure. And it was one of my mentors who did the exercise. He said, look, it will pass. It will pass. Well, okay. And it took about 3.5 days before it went. And I thought, well, I only just had something minor. And I had so many stories from people. And it's one of those things, as you said, is that you go out to seek out a treatment, and naturally you first look at the NHS route and then look at the other private options. But there's such a plethora of different techniques and modalities. It's like, well, which one do you choose? And it's trying to find, that right solution for you. So, you've obviously I've known you for now, 5 years or so now, and you've used havening and the techniques which I showed you all that time, and you've had some other events happen since then as well, and you've really embraced using that technique. Because one thing, when someone becomes traumatized, the brain landscape of the brain becomes vulnerable, so there's potential for future encoding of trauma. So by using the techniques regularly, you're building resilience to be able to bounce back in the future if you have something happen. And you've had a few things, and you pretty much still do it now, don't you? What's your routines now?
I still do my havening every day, to be honest.
Cool.
When I first started, I have to admit, I probably didn't.
Yeah.
So when first of all it fixed me, it was like magic. I never believed anything could happen as quickly and as well as what the havening and the NLP did.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be believable. You think, right, I'm going to go, and you just put all your focus and attention into it. And I walked out feeling like a completely new person. I felt absolutely incredible. And I'd find like you're just on like euphoria the whole time. And the feeling that I got from it, and it just kept you a lot more open-minded. It kept all the bad energy or focus essentially at bay. Whenever anything would start to play up, I would just redo it every time, to the point I thought, you know what, let's just do it every day. And I do, whether it's going back on a mood, there's always something that's going to annoy or hear you off in a day, or someone's done something, or a situation. And just by keeping that focus and just doing that, I've just found I don't really get any of the backlog really come up and block in my brain. I don't watch the news because I don't want that coming in.
That's
any more trauma. I think everyday life gives you enough of that as it is.
Yes.
But I do it every day. As soon as I wake up or before I go to bed, just 5 or 10 minutes, focus if needed, and go through with it. Another thing Chris taught me was the thumb trick. And I never realised I did it until we spoke not long ago. And I was like, I do that quite a lot, actually. And again, I just find that really helps. I just find that comfort. I don't know if it's to do with like anxiety or something, but whenever I feel uneasy, I've always realised I grab my thumbs. So that's another thing I found to be really useful. But definitely the havening every day, just 5 or 10 minutes, just keeps everything so much easier in everyday life. It doesn't let that anger level build up. So I always think of it a bit like a cup or a bottle. I don't want it to overspill, so I try and keep it as low as possible, and it keeps life a lot simpler.
Because, you built up that Pilates business and you got it, really, really working well. But then you went across the other side of the world, didn't you?
I did, yes. So I set up the business that we worked on, and I had about 100 clients I was teaching here in Surrey. And I went over to Hong Kong. I went to get a studio, and it all fell through because the freehold on the property came up. And I was just like, right, I need a break. So I went over to Hong Kong initially for 2 months, and I ended up staying for about a year, and I absolutely loved it. But I'd never have had the confidence to be able to have gone and done that before. So it gave me like a new lease of life. I experienced so much with it. I then came back. I was back home for about 3 months. And then I was over in Barbados teaching, running someone else's studio for them, which was amazing. And again, I wouldn't have done that before. So it really helped me to get a new lease of life, to develop me as a person and my teaching and business, really.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, you've really gone for it, there's definitely an entrepreneurial spirit in you. I can see that straight away when I met you. Just to have the balls to say, right, I'm going across the other side of the world to do this, or and as you said, the trigger for you to go over, you were like trying to find a lease and stuff for that building and stuff. And it was just how it came about. And then you've come back here and you're going, well, should I restart again? And of course, then we've had the lockdown, and now you're creating like the online Pilates business.
Yeah. So,
and of course, with the previous one, you had lots of different sites which you used to travel around, and with the lockdown, all those are closed off, and you're now working online. And of course, there's no restrictions in terms of geographic. Because we talked about a retreat, doing retreats together, you doing Pilates side and me doing the mental health side. And it's something which we may well still do as well. We talked about places in Thailand and various other places where we can do it and be, an enjoyable experience. But ultimately, where you're at now is you're building that brand now online, and of course now you don't have to leave or go anywhere.
No, go everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And it is that thing. I've noticed for me with the clinics, going, do I want to reopen these clinics? Because the work I do doesn't make any difference whether or not I'm sitting in front of someone or whether or not I'm on the end of a Zoom call or Skype call. It doesn't make any difference. It's the same effectiveness of it. And I've treated thousands of, hundreds of people overseas over the years. So it doesn't make a difference. Okay. But it's more a perception in the person's mind that it doesn't work. But, it very much does so. So for you, you've got more confidence out of this. And, as you said, it works for so many areas. So if you have disappointment with a boyfriend or some frustration you have to deal with, it works with all your emotions of shame, blame, guilt, sadness, anger, frustration, whatever that may be. And, naturally by you being, you can see you're a bubbly person, you've got a great personality, and, that smile beams through. What would you say is, for people who have gone through something like, being attacked or abused or raped or whatever, what would you say for those people with, what to do? Because I think as you said, your video has helped hundreds and hundreds of people, come forward.
I think, first of all, just don't blame yourself is the most important thing. I lived with a lot of guilt and blame with it for a long time before I could then openly come forwards to someone, because I thought, don't have a go at me or blame me. And once you can start to say, right, I need to speak to someone, it makes life a lot easier. Coming forwards and through with it and finding through with Chris, it's absolutely changed my life. The different techniques personally didn't work for me. I don't like the idea of taking a pill personally. Yeah. I don't think they're great. I found they really just numbed everything down, but the problem is still there. It's not changing. It never went away, which isn't what you want. You want to deal with what's going on. When I went through into things like the Priory, again, I didn't find that helped me at all. I went to workshops. They tried to say different things. I ended up blaming my parents because it happened because of a different school I went to where I met the new girl who I went on holiday with, whereas it's nothing even to do with that situation. Then when I came forwards and then went through with the whole process with Chris, it completely changed my life and perspective, and even my whole family are so thankful for everything Chris has done for me. It gave me back, essentially. So I lost myself for so long. And as Chris said, I'm a very chatty person and very outgoing. Throughout that time, I wasn't that person. I completely went away into my own bubble and shell, essentially, and was in self-destruct mode. To the point we now call Chris Magic Man, because with everything with the Havening, the NLP has just been like a magic. It's completely changed everything for me and given us as a family everything back as well. I've been able to rebuild my relationship with my family, with my brothers, because as I'm sure anyone with siblings can imagine, if you're rowing, it's one thing. If one person is always causing a problem, there's always that resentment and issue coming in, especially when they don't know what's gone on. So most importantly, come forwards, and you don't have to go down the generic routes. At the end of the day, I don't think they're always the best. I think you've got to look further afield, see what else there is to help. And that really does make a massive difference. But again, it's not just for people with the rape. It helps in so many different aspects of life. I was lucky in a way to find Chris through that way, and it's helped me so much more as a person in different situations of my life. So I'm really thankful for everything he's been able to do.
You've been amazing, and you've helped so many people. I think, it is one of those things that we're starting to recognise that the go-to technique of CBT doesn't cut it on so many levels. And, the problem with any new type of therapy treatment is that people are searching out for empirical evidence and big studies of thousands of people and whatever. And, that's been by design, because pharmaceutical companies are spending, huge amounts of money on drug development, just like they are now with this like COVID-19 drug to try and counter it. And the thing is, they can throw $500 million on studies. Say, here, look at our drug. It's amazing. This is wonderful. Because they know that, for every so many drugs that they create, they're going to get a few successful ones. And then they're going to get a license from the governments around the world for 20, 30 years to supply those drugs to the different health authorities. So they're just playing a numbers game. So, of course, when something new comes along, it's like, well, there's no empirical evidence. Well, hang on a minute. Like havening techniques, they did a study, I think it's 2013, it was, and it was so expensive for a very small sample. And of course, the creators of these different techniques don't have the money to create this evidence. So there's this disregarded, and it's so sad because, the techniques, I still come across new techniques on a regular basis and integrate them into the Mead method, which are, wow, it's really cool. But again, they don't get light of day because people want to see empirical evidence of saying, here's all these studies. And it's sad because, what are we doing with some of these techniques of using your hands and not popping a pill, or getting electric shock treatment, it's incredible. Just some of the things are quite barbaric out there, but they're being used in institutes, and you're thinking, well, look, you don't have to do that. But it is one of those things. It's like trying to find these different modalities and looking at where's the evidence, how many reviews are there, how many videos are there, are there other people, because just to try and find and obviously have a conversation with whoever's doing it to get an understanding. Do they know what they're talking about? They should be able to understand what you're doing in your head. And you go, hang on a minute. And so many people speak to me, like, you're the first person to actually explain to me in a way which is exactly happening to me in my mind. No one else has been able to actually tell me that. It's the only reason I have that is because the sheer volume of clients I see, because I get through so many people because it's so quick. And that's not in any way boasting. That's just the more experience you have, the more bigger reservoir of experiences you can pull from and go, okay, this person needs this to happen or this to happen, and then enabling you to have that technique and then going away to use it. Because the problem is that so many things is like, you have to keep coming back to see me. Yeah. And it's not about that. It's about empowering you to go, look, this is what you need to do. Go away and do it. And you're perfect embodiment of that. You've taken those things you've learned, and also you've created other elements yourself to it and thought, wow, this is really cool. And you come back to me, oh, I like that. I can remember one person come to me, I'm not sure if it was you or it was Lee, the other chap you're talking about, and said that I imagine you applying the techniques to me, and I re-experienced them. And I thought, oh, that's really good, because, an emotion is attached to every experience we have, whether it's a good emotion, a bad emotion, or whatever. And obviously people come to see me when they have all these bad emotions throughout these situations. So when we are using the techniques and releasing the trauma, the pain, the suffering, whatever, and of course you get quite high and quite spacey and feel good, okay, that feeling is anchored to that experience. So you can, in fact, remember myself applying the techniques to you, or you doing it yourself, and going, I feel that I could feel it just thinking about the memory and the changes that's taking place. It's like, wow, it's really cool. So you do it a few times and you're virtually recreating it.
Definitely.
So
I think it was Lee, but I know exactly what you're on about with it all, because even thinking back to sessions, you go, oh, yeah, and you can relive it, and you remember that feeling of how you walk in and the difference on how you walk out. Yeah. And I can still remember to this day that time I walked into that office in Tunbridge Wells in 2015, and I remember walking out and just sitting there going, wow. And I didn't know who to call. I just wanted to shout it at the top of my voice on the difference that you do feel. And it is incredible. Cool. Definitely, with it all.
Yeah. You've got so many exciting things ahead of you. I'm really excited to see what you're going to do in your business, because I know it's going to thrive. So I really, there's no fingers crossed. You've got it. Okay? So I really appreciate you coming on this podcast, because it really helped a lot of people just to hear, give some people hope. There's so many people going through life trying to keep a cap on something which has happened, or are just not willing to go forward because they feel too much fear about judgment and what it may entail. So I really appreciate you, and you take care.
It's all you too. Thank you so much, Jess.
Bye for now.
Bye.